getting ready to go live. Hold on, it's set it up. You must have seen that last week. Surprise! It should be good. Should be good. We good?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, we're live. Hey guys, we're here. It's Sherry's Facebook Live. We're on Facebook only today, so it is Facebook Live. Will be uploaded later to YouTube. As always, I am your host, Amy Gardner-Dean. Today is episode JL158. It is Rembrandt soft pastel demo working from a dark ground with Jeff Olson. And if you did not see Jeff I guess it's about, 3 or 4 weeks ago now at this point, he's joining us from the West Coast in, I'm guessing, not so sunny Seattle.
Not so sunny Seattle today, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't. And then Kyle.
Hi, everybody.
Kyle is also joining us. Kyle Richardson, the president of Royal Talens North America, is joining us from not so sunny Massachusetts as well.
Yeah, East Coast, lots of rain.
Yes.
We need it.
Well, if it makes you guys feel any better, we're going to have rain soon here. So it's all good. But Jeff Olson is he is the education director of Royal Talens for North America. And he's going to be showing us some really awesome techniques with Rembrandt soft pastels today, which is near and dear to my heart because I have been using Rembrandt soft pastels as well myself. So this will be lots of fun and hopefully we'll learn some new stuff. And Kyle, I think you had some information you wanted to give us at the beginning before we get started with this.
Just for everybody tuning in live, and I'll mention it again later on as well in case there's new people. Throughout the conversation we have today, we're going to mention a lot of things that are kind of new and interesting little tidbits of information about pastels and our company. And I have 3 sets here, new sets from Rembrandt. These were actually created in North America. These are micro sets, we call them, in Rembrandt pastels. We have a gray tone, we have a general selection, and we have dark shades. These are fairly new. And for people at the end of the conversation, we're going to be looking for comments that tell us what the most interesting thing you learned today is. And we'll pick 3 of those people and send them out these sets.
That's really awesome. Thank you guys for doing that. And it's the perfect way for them to try Rembrandt pastels, even if they have to buy them themselves and they aren't the lucky winners, but especially that dark set. So hard to get beautiful darks in soft pastels. And that dark set is just amazing. So
thank you. And we actually, I'll tell you a short story about that pastel set. We made a 15-piece set as well. And it had to do with the emergence of darker surfaces that people were working on. Nice. And I learned from people working on these dark surfaces that when you have a darker tone, and Jeff will show you some of this as well, you need to bring your values down on your pastels as well. So that's what helped us create these new dark shades.
Nice. Awesome. Well, yep. Is that Jeff ready to take it away? Because I know
first Kyle's going to show us what we're going to be working with, and I'll show you some things too. So we have those small sets. They're 10-piece half stick sets. There's 6 different type. I think we got 3 that we're showing you today. And Kyle, if you can hold that up and kind of spin it, because I don't have the box sets. I've got all my loose pieces. But cool. Yep. So those are the sets, yeah. And they're super fun and very economical.
Mm-hmm. They're $19.95 MSRP. And we created these, also the gray tones, because we wanted to give people a little bit more help in organizing the way that they purchase pastels, because pastels can be almost overwhelming in terms of the number of shades, number of pigments used. And if you're just starting out, to sit there in front of an open stock pastel display with 218 colors is, you probably just walk away going, I don't know where to start. So we arranged these 10 and 5-piece sets in colorways that help you navigate the color space a little bit easier, so that people can start trying them out without feeling intimidated by buying a large set.
Right. It's a great way to get into pastels without making a huge investment, but still having enough of a variety to create something interesting and something fun. And hopefully will lead you into exploring pastels overall more. And then I'm also going to be working on some paper sheets. Kyle's got some of the full pads there. He'll show you. These are the new Rembrandt pastel pads. You can go up a little higher. There we go.
Yeah.
Here. Okay.
So they come in two sizes. You've got one that's roughly 8.5 by 11, and another one's 12 by 16. They come with 6 different colors in each pad. There's a light and a dark cone, 5 sheets of each color, so 30 sheets per pad. So it's a great value and a really wonderful paper, great surface, a lot of nice tooth, but not so much texture that you can't do some detail work as well.
Now, is it the same texture on both sides for that paper?
It's fairly uniform on both sides. It's almost like a reverse weave pattern, so it's not so distinct like other pastel papers that I've learned on. I have one side that's very smooth, and one side that's like a golf ball.
Right.
It's not like that. Much more in between, so that you can use both sides of the paper, but they're not too different at all. So I feel like these are good. When you have those heavily textured papers, they're great. The intent is to use them so that you can layer 10, 15 layers of pastels because it's so there's so much variation in the surface. But most people don't do that. So especially when you're starting out, this is great for 5 to 10 layers. And then you can use fixative after that. But it's not so deep that your first brush strokes or your pastel strokes are like all you see is the deviation in the paper. It's not that pronounced.
All right, so those are the goodies today, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see my tabletop here.
And I will be answering questions on the in the comments while Jeff speaks.
All right, everybody see that okay?
It's good.
Looking good. All right, so let's get started. So before I start making some artwork with you all, I wanted to share some fun facts about pastels in general. So the first thing is, what do pastels and pasta have in common? Any ideas out there? Any ideas? They have a lot, actually. Let's talk about what they have in common. So the name pastel in French or pastello in Italian come from the same root word as pasta, the medieval Latin pastellum for paste or dough. So essentially, when you look at how pastels are made, they're literally a ball of dough that gets strung out and pressed through a machine that looks just like a big pasta machine into long coils. And so this idea of mixing pigment together with a binder into a dough is where the word comes from, and it's the same root word as pasta. Kyle's seen them actually being made. I've seen them after the fact, but he's seen them go from the pasta machine to the oven.
Yeah, I have. We call it the Willy Wonka machine. It sounds like that. It's about the size of a minivan, and you hear bleep, bloop, bloop, bleep, bleep, bloop, bloop, as they get extruded and cut and then baked and then wrapped with the wrap for the packaging.
All right, so here's a couple other things on pastels you might not know. Pastels have the highest concentration than any other medium. So when you're working with pastels, you're literally working with pigment in a stick form. So you can get lots and lots of color, which is why so many pastel artists are dedicated to the medium. There are different binders that are used in pastel. Now the binder is what holds the pigment together in suspension as well as adhering it to the surface. Gum arabic is used, tragacanth gum from the goatweed plant. That's another type of gum binder that's used historically in pastels. We use something known as kaolin or China clay, and this photograph here is actually a mine in China, and all that white is the kaolin. And it's literally mined from the surface. It's the same type of clay that's used in China, the making of the higher grade China. And it's really, really a wonderful binder and holds a lot of pigment, which is what gives Rembrandt its distinct hardness. It isn't more binder, it's actually a better binder that does it. So that's one of the features for the Rembrandts. And then finally, pastels do not oxidize. So if you work with paint, especially oil paint, you have a paint film, over time that paint film is going to oxidize. Pastels, that doesn't happen. So it actually makes pastels one of the most permanent mediums. A lot of folks don't see that. They think of it as being very fragile and and something that you have to treat with kit gloves. It certainly is in the sense of the pigment sitting on the surface, but that color, that's going to remain strong and true for many, many years. So pastel is a real durable material. And then a couple of things that Kyle and I wanted to point out to you. This is also on the box or the packaging, and for the wrapped pastels, this information is on the individual stick too. This is an example from a section of the color chart, and you can see how it comes down here. So each one of these color columns is based on the same pigment with either more black or white added. And I'm going to hold this up a little closer to the camera. It looks a little blurry, but you can see this. So right here is the key to reading pastels in that giant rack, like Kyle said, of 218 colors. Truth be told, there are only 43 pigments overall in terms of the pure pigments. And those ones will be the color number 205 and then a decimal point. If it's 0.5, that's the full shade. So that's the pure pigment. If it's a 2 or a 3, that's a mixture with black. And if it's a 0.7 all the way up to a 0.12, that's a tint. In other words, it's mixed with white. So when you're looking at these color numbers back here, you see this one here, 627.5, that's the pure hue. And here's 3 and 2, this is mixed with black. And then here's 7, 8, 9, and 10, that's mixed with white. So it really simplifies understanding all those colors. Definitely. And the reason this is done this way is you can't mix pastels like you mix paint. You can't take two colors and mix them together and create another one. So you literally need to have the tints and shades of each color so that you can create those tonal values that you would normally create with paint. Other things that are on here are the light fastness quality. All the Rembrandt pastels are either excellent or good, 100+ years light fast under museum light conditions. So that information will be on there. And then also this information, which is the color index number. This is pigment yellow 184, pigment yellow 138, just as an example. So you will always find this on an artist quality material. It will always tell you what the actual pigment is. So let's say you have more than one brand in your box, which is very common for a lot of pastel artists. This is the way you can compare two different brands and identify one as the same pigment, because we all have different color names, right? We've got Dutch color names, we've got French color names, we've got English color names. So this is the way that you can really identify what color you're using in your pastel. So that's my fun facts.
No, that's awesome. Thank you.
You bet. So let's get to working with some pastels. So what I did ahead of time is cut some sections from the pad that Kyle showed you. This is from the light value pad. So you've got 6 colors. The pad would come with 5 each of these colors. And what I wanted to do real quickly is show you the benefit of working on toned grounds. So I've got 3 pastels over here. These are my 0.5s. These are the pure hues from some examples of the sets that Kyle showed. And so what I want to do is just show real quick how using the same colors on different tone grounds affects your perception of the color. Those of you who have studied color theory or Joseph Albers et al. Will be familiar with this kind of a project. So I'm just going to put a little bit of color down on each one of these for you. You can kind of see the tooth in the surface there as I'm working on this. I'll kind of hold it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you get a nice look for that. Get my green on there. And this is something that I always recommend too when folks are working on different grounds. You know, just test some areas with color. Get a feel for how the color is reacting and interacting. Color is something that's in constant state of flux. It's always changing based on the light that it's receiving, as well as the adjacencies. So the colors that you're using side by side can change your perception of color. So when you're working on toned grounds like this, you always want to try out colors, even colors that you feel like you're really familiar with, because they're going to look a little different as you try them on each one of the sheets of paper. Get that back in the frame there. I always got to look back and forth to my, what's on the screen and what am I doing? Mm-hmm. It's like, watch me do this over here. Oh, wait. Yep. And I'm going to put these all closer together so you can see them at the same time when I'm all done. Because it really is interesting to see how color works and color mixes in the eye. So we've got that bluish gray one up there. We've got a gray, it's kind of greenish ochre, an ochre, and a Naples yellow look. So here's the same color on all these sheets of paper, but see how it changes in value as it goes from one to the other? And this shows you one of the advantages of working on a color ground. You can create different color effects than you would just working on the white paper, because you can see how it's very different just on a white paper compared to how it looks on the tone grounds. You get a couple things happening here. You get the color adjacency and also the broken color from the textured pattern that comes up through the actual pastel itself and affects the temperature. It doesn't make it warmer, it doesn't make it cooler. So this is something that's easy to do real quick, to check your colors before you start working on the actual sheet. I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to give you one more example of this before I start on the project. I've got a gray, blue gray, and a white sheet. And this time I'm going to use all the greens that I have in the range, starting with the darkest green. And I'll do them at the same time so you can see that I'm not cheating. Big difference there.
Yeah. That's really vibrant on that darker ground.
Yeah, look at, as I get to the lighter values, how much more they pop. So here you saw me do it. This is the same color, but they don't look the same at all. You can almost shift it up a one.
Yep.
Say, okay, that looks more like those are the same colors, just because the different ground that you have underneath it. So a little color theory here today, using pastels and tone grounds. But again, it shows you the opportunity that you have when you use a different type of value ground, especially with these lighter values, right? How much more fun do they look on this darker gray than they do here? And kind of the same thing over here. The darker values on that light ground really pop, especially the contrast here between the light and the dark. Here you don't have as much contrast. So really a fun way to look at the benefits of using a tone paper. Any questions we're getting out there on this?
Somebody asked if we could see, swipe the color to see how soft or hard. So I think they mean like smudge it. They really want to see how it feels.
So the Rembrandt pastels are harder in their texture than you find with a lot of other pastels, which mean they're excellent on point. So there's the point, which means drawing with the edge of it. Also going to do here on the edge. So you can see they release really well, really excellent color release for how hard they are. And again, they're not harder than other pastels because they have more binder. They're harder because they have the kaolin versus a gum arabic or a gum tragacanth. So,
and because of the extrusion. I mean, there's different ways to make pastels. Some are basically putting the mixture, the dough, so to speak, into like basically a mold, and that's how some manufacturers do it. Others hand roll it, and I think we're one of the only ones that actually extrude it. So you get different variable working properties depending on how it's produced. That has more to do with it than the ingredients even, because if you take a very, very soft pastel, they're beautiful for like the finishing touches, but if you tried to do all your work with that, you're going to be layering down so much dense, soft pigment that you can't make any layers. So
and
Rembrandt pastels are known as
softer ones. There's always a lot of breakage too. This is the perfect beginner pastel for beginners or advanced in that it behaves very predictably. You're not getting pieces breaking off and falling everywhere when you're trying to do your finer lines, but then you can do larger areas. It's soft enough to do larger areas very nicely.
Absolutely. You can see how easily I was able to blend it just using my finger real quickly, even where I drew on point with the pastel. I was able to make a nice gradation without seeing the line underneath. So they really do lay down a lot of color and give you the ability to do a variety of surface effects.
Yeah, they're considered the workhorse of the pastel world. And I kind of say, like, they do most of the work in most pastel paintings. Most professional pastelists use Rembrandt for the bulk of their work. And then they sometimes use a harder pastel for the drawing and the underpainting, or they use Rembrandt and then they finish on the top with some of the softer pastels. But that's kind of the commonality, the common way that they're explained is the workhorse of the pastel.
This is it. This is all I'm using today, along with the pastels. I've got an X-Acto knife here. I've got an eraser going to be using, and then the trusty kitchen spoon. This is going to be key. This is going to be key today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some fun waves, and as promised, I wanted to show you a different type of technique than maybe you're used to using on the dark ground. So this is the black paper here, and I'm going to do a dusting technique. So just to show you what dusting is real quickly, I'm going to take some almost white here, and on the back of my paper, I'm going to do a quick dusting. So you take the pastel and you put the X-Acto knife against it, and you're literally just scraping off a little bit of the pastel. This more severe angle or the short versus long strips can give you a different effect as you go through. So that's a dusting onto the paper. And then with the spoon, you can either go directly into it, which is what I'm going to do today, or you can use a parchment paper, which I'll show you as well when we get to the actual drawing. And you just press the pastel down into it. And so that helps it adhere to the paper. And it gives you these fun effect, which you'll see how I'll use this in creating an ocean wave here in a minute. So that's the dusting technique. It's that simple. It's worth it if you've never tried it before, to do some experimentation, to get a feel for how you want to hold the X-Acto knife. You can use a razor blade with it. You can use sanding, paper pointers too. But I think the X-Acto is probably one of the best. So in my wave today, I'm going to start with darker values and build up to lighter values. And I'm going to be using a series of blues and greens. So here's my black paper, and I'm going to go in. You probably can't see much of that on the black paper. So I'm putting down some of this dark blue and some streaks that are going kind of diagonally where the main kind of push of my wave is going to be. Get a little more over here and a little more down here. As I start getting to the lighter colors, you'll be able to see a little better. So let's get some blue. You can start to see some of that blue there. You can see that wonderful blue there. And this will be a nice blue for the water too. Try not to sound like Bob Ross here.
Why?
Just beautiful, happy blue.
You're doing water, you're not doing a tree. I think it's okay.
We love Bob Ross. I love Bob. I can't remember the name. He had a mentor and a guy who did those shows before him. I had like a heavy German accent. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about too.
Yeah. So I'm just, I'm putting down all the pigment, and what I'm going to do, and that different artists do this differently. Some artists put down each color and press it in. I'm going to put down all the color first and then press it in with the spoon. And the reason I do that is I love the accidental kind of happy mistakes that come about from this process. Plus you get this wonderful layering of the color. So as I get a little higher in my waves, here we go, getting some lighter blues in there. You can see that really well. Coming down, some over here as well.
Now these are the blues that are from that micro kit.
They're from those sets. Yep, these are from those sets.
Pretty.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Aren't they wonderful? And then again on the dark surface, so different. I'll show you that same blue on this surface. Doesn't look like much there, right?
No. Really,
and then here it almost glows.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. And I love this too, because in the beginning you're looking at it like, I don't know what he's doing and how this is going to turn into anything. I'm just going to trust him. I've got another piece of paper too, a lighter paper, that I'm going to show you some of it, on too, so you can kind of compare and contrast. Pretty sure we'll have time.
So Rita has told us that William Alexander was Bob Ross's mentor.
Yes,
William
yes.
Alexander.
That's
Thank you, Rita. You are fantastic. So I'm putting a little green in here, not too much. You know, this is the ocean. There's a little variance. It isn't just all blue, right? You want some different colors in there. A little down in here. All right. Now,
Jeff, what's the name of the blue you're using? Do you know which pigment it is?
this blue, yes, I do. This blue is Phthalo 570.
Phthalo. Yes.
This particular light one is the 570 .5. 570. So that's my pure, or 570 point. Excuse me. 570.8. All right, now we're going to get into the fun stuff. We got to have some crashing waves here. So this isn't white, believe it or not. This is actually a light green. It is the vermilion. I'm going to kick some up there because my water is kind of splashing, right? Yeah, get some fun ocean spray there.
Somebody already wants to buy your painting, Jeff.
You know, what I got to figure out is how to make this just stick all by itself. Because when you're doing it just with, you know, before I press it in, there is a fun kind of pointillistic quality to it that's really kind of cool. This wave's kind of crashing in a different direction, so I'm gonna a little bit, get a little bit over here, not quite as much. All right, now I'm gonna get to that pure bright white and really build up some of my wave at the top here. Come down in here because there's always a little trailing off there. Got my breaker down here coming on. It's a very therapeutic process too.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, if you like to chew your fingernails, this will be a really good.
Good substitute.
Maybe just a couple random. All right, so now the fun part begins. All right, so I promised I'd show you two different ways to do this. So the way some people do that, I've got this parchment paper, literally bought it in the baking section of the grocery store, just parchment paper off the roll. And the way some folks like to do it is to put the parchment paper down and take your spoon and literally press into it. Now the benefit of doing it this way is you don't get pastel all over the place. Now I'm going to just do it in this one section so you can see it. And the pastel doesn't stick to it. And so you can kind of see how it smears it out a little bit there, like that. And I like the way that looks. That's coming away. But I like doing it with just the spoon. And the reason is I get the colors to mix and interplay more.
So Jeff, what you're saying is you're using the spoon like a palette knife? So
just like a palette knife, yeah. You can do this with a palette knife too. Yeah. But the convex shape of the spoon, especially holding it with your finger like I am, kind of lends it to the technique a little bit more. So if you didn't do this, the pastel you'd pick up the sheet of paper and the pastel dust would just fall off. So right. This is what makes it stick. And when you turn it, so you can either bend it like that presses it in.
Or drag it.
Drag it. I like kind of making small circles because it mixes and blends while you're pressing the paper down.
Mm-hmm. I'm trademarking palette spoon at the moment.
Palette spoon.
I'm getting my ocean spray.
So if you had glassine paper, you could even use that in place.
You can use that too, for sure. So you want to make sure that you've got every area, because you will, I'm going to pick it up. This is just stage one here. We're kind of getting our sense of the water.
Everybody is really excited about the spoon technique, just so you know, Jeff. The comments are, everybody's going nuts.
Spoon, who knew, right? All right, so I'm going to take this and dip a little bit. So I've dusted it, let some of it fall off. So some of it came off, you can see there. So now I'm going to go back and do a second round. I'm going to keep with my lighter values this time. I'm not going to go back. I'm going to put in a little bit of dark in some of it. You can see how much of the black I'm leaving too. Come back in with the light greenish yellow, my sea foam color.
Hopefully the viewers can't hear it, but I was teasing you guys about the rain and we are having a wicked thunderstorm right now. So,
No.
sorry, if that's what anybody hears, it's us.
Can't hear it from here.
Oh, good.
Nope, no, I can't hear it either. You're in good shape. Come back with some of that bright white, especially up here at the top of the wave. I just love the way it looks, just like a spraying, splashing.
That's what the viewers said. It's like using like the watercolor splattering technique, but
Yeah.
with a pastel. Someone said they ran out to the kitchen to get a spoon and some wax paper, Jeff. Got people up and running already. Oh.
All right. All right, let's do some more pressing again. Our stormy water. Oh yeah, that's turning out nice. Now there are a couple other tricks you can use too when you're doing this. You can put a little fixative on it ahead of time. And that helps the pastel adhere a little better. You can spray fixative while you're working on it. Here, I'm going to do, this is actually just water. I'm going to do a little bit of that. See the water hitting it? That makes for a nice effect too.
Mm-hmm. Now, some of the water in the upper left is looking like it's reflecting a lot, but I'm sure if you looked at that straight up, it's not. Just in case people were worried that you just created something by accident. That's okay too.
Now my eraser here, and I'm not doing this to take out, but if you use the eraser, you can actually make some blends with the eraser.
Oh, nice.
Create that sense of the wave that's moving forward.
That's just a gum style eraser, correct?
Yep, just a gum eraser, yep. I'm going to put a little more green in some of there because I like the green look of it, especially around the edge of the foam there. Some more of my fun halos.
So we have a couple questions here, Jeff, while you're working with the eraser and adding some more layers. The first one was, if you use acrylics and pastels in conjunction with each other. Would you want to frame the finished piece under glass or open? And I think it depends on what the final layer is. If the final layer is acrylic and your pastels are underneath as an underpainting, you don't need glass. If your final layer is pastels over acrylic, then you're going to need to put glass over it.
Yep, got it.
Yep. Are pastel pigments generally non-toxic? It really depends on the brand. The best thing to do is to look for the pigment and what pigment is used in the pastel. Then you can find out if that pigment is non-toxic or not. And the easiest way is to look at, are they an AP color or not? AP from ACMI. That being said, I will tell you that, excuse me, all pastels are required, if they have titanium white, to carry the CL seal, which is a caution label. And that's because, excuse me, titanium white is considered a heavy metal. And if you breathe in a lot of it every day, just like if you breathe in dust every day in that same amount, it could cause cancer. But that's, without saying too much about that, that's true of dust as well. Right. But we don't have heavy metals aside from zinc and titanium in the pastels and Rembrandt. We used to have cobalts and cadmiums back, I think, in the 80s, up until the 80s, and we removed them at that point. So you really just want to avoid cadmiums and cobalts, in my opinion. But always be safe. You know, err on the side of caution. Respirators, if you're working with them heavily every day, because pastel dust is just like anything else. You breathe in enough of it and it's going to be, you know, bad for you. Luckily, you know, Rembrandt pastels don't cause a lot of dust. That's one of the nice things about the way that they're manufactured. They're not really dusty.
So voila.
Et voila.
So this is the dusting technique on a dark ground using the Rembrandt pastels. Now I'm going to do another one. You want to take one last look? Any questions on this one before I switch to the new one?
I don't think so. It looked like we had a few people asking about the paper. They wanted to know if it was smooth or a velvety feel. Can you explain kind of how that feels under the pastel?
I'll get this. This is kind of shows the texture. You can see the texture. There's a slight texture. I would reckon it more to velvetly. It's not a hot press type of surface. And it's not as rigid as a cold press paper. It's kind of in between. So it gives you, like I was saying earlier, if you like to create texture, you can create some good textures with this, but it's also good for detail work as well. And you can see both sides are kind of the same. So I would make it more like it's a little more velvetly than like a métienne. A métienne is kind of the standard pastel paper that a lot of people have out there. This is a little softer than that. And not quite as rigid. And I've been taking it for a year now around doing demos, and people are loving it. You know, so it really has been super successful with both professional and enthusiasts alike. So this is on the dark ground. These are my stormy waves. I'm going to do the exact same thing on a more medium ground this time. So here's my more medium ground. So of course, this time the values that I'm going to have to use are going to be a little different. Remember when I put on the dark blues last time, you couldn't even see them on the black paper? Well, you're going to see them this time.
Kyle, we've had a question about how the contest is going to work. Someone had come in late. Can you explain that one more time for the people who are just joining us?
Sure. So I've got these 3 sets. I don't know if people can see my video feed, but we've got a dark pastel set, dark shades. We've got the general set, and we've got the gray tones. So what we'll be doing is at the end of it, we will be looking for comments related to what you learned today that you didn't know before. And I'm going to randomly just select 3 of those, obviously 3 different people. So those 3 different people, we will direct message you to get your details about sending them out to you, because I'm sure you don't want everybody to know where you live. So we'll just pick 3 people randomly that have commented on something they learned today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm. And there's no limit to how many times you can comment, but you're not going to get 2 sets. So
Just for fun here, I'm doing a little bit of blending just with my finger in the beginning.
Amy, do we have a pin with the class list up? A lot of
They
people are
can
asking.
go to jerrysartarama.com and type in JL158 and
Mhm.
it will pull that up. I don't know if the paper got put in stock and added on. I did not see a SKU notice to put the item numbers on, but I can add that back at any time and fix it to the cart. So I'm going to be looking for that tomorrow morning, first thing, and it'll be added in there. So I did a search and didn't see it up, so it may not have been able to get added on at the last minute. But I once it's up, Kyle, I'll put a note in the Jerry's Live group, and I'll give them links to those papers as well for you.
Okay. Great. Terrific. I'll just show them again. This is the Rembrandt pastel light shades. Comes in 2 different sizes, basically 9 by 12 and 12 by 16, as well as the dark shades. And these are some of the colors. There's a couple different kind of heather grays in the dark shade. I'll show them while Jeff's working on his next demo. This is the heather. This is light heather warm and light gray. And there's also ice blue.
That's pretty.
That's a great color. This is graphite. And then, of course, black.
And Jeff, what color are you working on right now?
It's that light yellow green.
Okay.
Oh, you mean for paper, though?
The paper
Oh,
color.
the
I'm
paper.
sorry.
The paper is actually from the light shades.
A light shade, yeah.
It's from the light shade set.
Okay.
I just made all the color names up today, so I'll have to look at it. Oh, honestly, I did. So we didn't have them named.
It's a pretty, I love the color of the paper he's working on. It's really nice.
Yeah, this kind of grayish blue.
Mm-hmm.
The light color set, while Jeff's working there. This is the first color. It's called Sunshine. This color is Cream. This is Goldenrod. It's actually a little bit cooler yellow. It's kind of a neat color. This one is Steam Gray. It's kind of a nice, almost neutral, but a little bit warm gray. White, you know what that looks like. The blue that Jeff's working on right now. And that's it.
This is a great contrast, Jeff, to be able to see these really dark blues so easily.
Yeah.
But it's funny that, you know, the white doesn't have the same pop with it being that lighter value.
Yep.
This is a great exercise to show people.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's, I mean, people sometimes, why would I want to work on a tone paper at all? And it just changes the way the colors react, sometimes in a really dramatic way. All right, the spoon. Okay.
The hero of the whole shot.
right?
Show. I just love how it mixes underneath it, though. It's such a. It brings the dusting to life, if you will.
So somebody asked, what other things can you do with this besides waves?
Besides waves, you know, if you look up pastel dusting, there are so many different subject matters. One of the first ones I saw was a still life with pears. So anything that you want to create a texture, you can use this technique with. I'm letting it be very sporadic and energetic, but you can do it in a very detailed way also. So there are a lot of different ways to work with it, a lot of different subject matters or subject matter that you can approach with it.
Bob Strauss just let us know that kaolin binder is very multi-purpose kind of material. It's actually used as well in kaopectate for diarrhea. So
Yeah.
it's got that going for it, but it's also a great binder for pastels.
Well, something that a lot of people don't know is that not all pastels use that, you know, the kaolin is that brilliant, brilliant white clay.
Right.
Other pastels don't necessarily use that. And so you get colors that maybe in mass tone are right enough. You start layering, it starts getting really muddy and gross looking really fast. That kaolin really makes the colors pop. And that's why these colors that Jeff is using are so incredibly vibrant, is that kaolin clay is very bright. I've used some student grade pastels to just do demos or just, you know, things that we had around here that were student grade. You can sometimes see in kind of the clay and the fines, if you really flatten the color out and try to smooth it down enough, you can see it not being a white clay. You can see particles in it. So this is why this color is so vibrant, is that you guys use pure top quality clay.
Right. That makes a big difference. And also that little bit of gum arabic that's in the binder also allows it to be thinned with water, not just alcohol. Because if you look at a lot of student grade or below entry level pastels, they can't be thinned with water because gum arabic's not cheap. So I know they're using a different, you know, whether it's calcium or whatever they're using, that has to, you know, you have to use an alcohol to break that down. Where with Rembrandt pastels, they really truly are able to be broken down and used as a mixed media tool with watercolors as well, just with water itself. So they're pretty versatile for that reason.
Yeah, look at that difference. Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so the exact same palette on two different, I'm trying to find the best way to.
Yeah, that's good right there. Looks actually really good.
Yeah, so real dramatic difference, right? This, I mean, this has more drama for sure. The contrast between the dark and light is so high, but this has a nice subtlety too, as well. But just, yeah, two different results with only a difference in the tone ground. So it really shows off why it's fun to experiment and invest in some of the tone paper to work with your pastels.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that's another good thing too, Jeff, in that color or even value can add a feeling and emotion to something. There's a lot of people that kind of, it's that kind of next higher plane that kind of an artist learns to deal with after they learn technique, is how do you use your materials to actually help with an emotion that you may be trying to feel in it. You know, the one on everybody's left, the dark looks like a night and tumultuous, you know, it's very different. The other one looks like a sunny day and it's just maybe waves crashing on a rocks. It has a very different feel because of the color and the value. So
yeah, it is just fun to explore and experiment.
Well, and that's another thing, especially with you showing those kind of paper, small paper slices at the beginning that you had. We're always trying to encourage people to really know their material before they get started on it, because you can take something and you think it's great. You've used a color paper that just doesn't, the colors don't pop, they don't stand out. And if you just taken a little bit of time and a little bit of investment in some small pieces of material,
It's worth it. Yeah.
yes, it really save you a lot of time and trouble later. And another good thing with using a toned ground, you can save a lot of pastel application too.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
well, you can see that in here, how much of the paper underneath is contributing to the overall effect. And yeah, so for sure.
I mean, and that's pocket friendly. That's something that you can use to your advantage, and not use as much material. That makes it cheaper to produce your art. Not cheaper, but a better value. It is cheaper.
No, you can save money.
I like quality materials, but I'd like to make them go as far as possible. So
exactly. I think too, the experiment with trying one of the mixed pads of Rembrandt pastel paper, it's a few sheets of each color. So you get a chance to try, what the effect's going to be when you use a different value, a different hue, a different color, warm or cool, light or dark. Gives you a lot of different options to explore, without buying a whole pad or a whole huge sheet. You can just try out a few different colors, then, see how it goes for you.
Right. No, especially since there's 5 different pieces in each pad. That's great. Usually you don't get that many in a mixed color pad. So that's right. Fantastic right there.
So I'm going to pick, in 5 minutes, I'm going to pick 3 people to win the 3 sets.
Nice.
It's going to take me 5 minutes to go through all the comments and questions. So
everybody's really excited about this dusting technique, Jeff, and with the spoon. This is wowed people, and there's some people that are saying that they've worked in pastels for a while, and just this was not something that was shown to them. So
definitely Google it. You can see how other artists have approached it. There's videos out there too, as well, showing some artists. I wish I could remember the name of the artist. There's actually this guy who does these very large scale, like 6 feet by 6 feet on the ground with this technique, and he puts all the powder on and then he blows it away to show the detail of the painting that he gets underneath.
Wow.
I know I'm teasing people, and I'm gonna have to go search the internet for
I was gonna say, that's really exciting.
Yeah, I saw a quick
find
video.
that, send me the link, because I'll put it in the Jerry's group. I'm sure that they would appreciate that.
And this is one of those things too, like I'm sitting here, I could keep doing this for hours. applying, going back and forth, and getting more value in there, right?
Well, it's probably very Zen-like. It's relaxing. You don't, you're making something that's figurative, and you're not making something, by not doing what
when you give up some control with this technique a little bit too, and I think it opens it up to different types of expression. So instead of trying to draw in a particular thing, you're letting the pastel, the material, kind of spread out and find its way on the surface, and then you're kind of exploiting that as you're seeing, oh, that works. I'm gonna
that's nice.
I'm gonna go with that.
I love the eraser. That's been my favorite part. Is there's so many different little river chipped pastel tools that are really expensive, and it's just an eraser.
It's just an eraser.
And you're getting really awesome results with just an eraser.
There we go. Fun. So do you want me to leave that on the screen, or do you want me to switch us back so we can all talk?
Entirely up to you.
What time are we at? Because I could keep doing this for hours.
We've got about 5 more minutes.
Oh, well, let me switch back so I can see folks and they can see me, and we can say hi. There we go.
So there was a question that I saw further back, but it wasn't really the time or effort, kind of time to ask it. And it was about how to, with pastel, and I think that we can use this in a general term for pastel paper. How is it best to finish a finished pastel work on paper like this for display? And,
Right.
and if you don't mind talking about how to store things like this until you frame them to protect them, that's something that people always have questions about, that a lot of people aren't aware of what's best.
Well, you definitely need to research some fixatives. I'm using the Talens fixative I have here. There are several good brands out there. They all work very similarly. Some are aerosol, some are pump spray, some are the old-fashioned atomizer, if you've ever used one of those. Don't breathe in.
Yeah.
No. Those can be dangerous. Yeah.
But you definitely want to find the one that you feel works for you in the studio environment that you have. You have to, it's essential to fix your pastel, regardless of the technique you're using, especially with a dusting technique. You've got to, adhere some of that to the surface so it doesn't all just fall right off the paper. So you want to find the fixative you like and spray it thoroughly. Keep your spray about 12 inches away so you don't blow paper. Definitely test it on a surface. It will change the color a bit. It will darken it typically when you first put it on, but when it dries, it should come back to closer to what you had. So you want to fix it first. Most pastel paintings, I call them, or drawings, whichever you prefer, do need to be under glass, just like watercolors when you present them. So when you get them framed, that'll be how you will frame them. So fixative and then under glass for exhibition. Preserving them, you want a flat file. You don't want to roll up a pastel at all. You will lose a lot of it. It's very similar to gouache in that in terms of how you have to treat it. It has to stay flat. So you need some kind of print rack or flat file to store these in. And then you can use glassine in between the individual drawings. So you have your one drawing down, sheet of glassine, next drawing, sheet of glassine. And that's after you've used the fixative. You can use workable fixatives with pastels, just like you do with charcoal, so that you can go back into it. Again, you want to test that to make sure you're not that you're getting a result that you're happy with and not going to be upset by what it looks like. So always test it on a scrap or whatnot.
I am going to also point out that these are professional quality pastels. And when you fix professional quality pastels, if you do it with a light hand, the color is going to come back. If you're not doing ones that have that really pure binder clay, you will lose your color. You will lose your color. Disappear.
It'll
it's terrifying how quickly. So it's not that I don't want anybody out there to think that this is just anything that's called a pastel. When they fix it by what you've said, the color is going to come back. It won't. This is why, and I think in pastels, student, artist, professional grade is the most marked difference of all materials, because that binder makes so much of a difference for everything.
Yeah, it really does. But also the fixative has a big part to play as well. They all have very different. Some are basically alcohol and resin. Mm-hmm. That's what ours is. Other ones are different types of solvents with different types of not resin, but like a varnish almost.
Right.
Those tend to be heavier and tend to really attack your values. So you want to have a, like you said, Amy, a light hand. You can always go back and add more, but be at least 12 inches away while you're spraying, and always ventilate as well. What I like about ours is that it's alcohol and resin, so it smells like spray starch, which is basically very similar to what it is.
Very similar.
It doesn't smell bad.
Yeah, and the thing about the alcohol-based ones too, it evaporates very quickly, so you see your colors sooner. The resin is kind of the adhesive part of it. The alcohol is kind of the not binder, but the
vehicle.
The vehicle. Thank you. The vehicle. It's the vehicle.
So I'd like to announce our winners. Let's see. We've got Laura Beckering was one of the winners.
Yay, Laura.
And so she won a set. There were so many good comments, though. It was hard to do this. So I basically just went through
a lot.
beginning, in the middle, and at the end. So I hope I didn't offend anybody. But yes. So Laura's one winner. Anyway, you guys can see who the winners were. You were tagged, and we'll direct message you to get your sets.
Awesome. Well, this
So
has been fun.
Who else
Thank you.
besides Laura? Because everybody's going to be upset.
Okay. I'll
Don't hear
keep
the other two.
I have to go back through and see who I tagged.
Oh, well.
I tagged them, so you'll see them in the comments. I commented and tagged them. Yep.
So if you weren't tagged, you didn't win.
This
But
time.
you still are a winner because you got to see Jeff's awesome demo and you learned a lot.
Thank you. It's always fun.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank Amy, you, and the team at Jerry's for letting us come on here and do a little bit of art geekery, nerd out about materials. And for everybody watching, you know, when you see these products and you like them, you know, support the people that help put this together and spend your money with Jerry's, you know, on these products that you liked in the demo. So, and thank you.
Well, thank you guys. I really, truly appreciate it. This is, and Kyle, thank you so much for coming on because you're helping field, you know, product questions for your company. And I think that really helps because they're getting the direct source. You're very accessible. And Jeff, thank you for doing this. I know with your education background, it's probably old hat, but it's just really, it's awesome to have like awesome artists like you on. So
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. All right. Well, I think if I find Katie, she's coming, we'll end this. But if you're looking for any of these products, you want to see some of these really cool little micro sets, it's a great way to segue in to pastels, even to use them in mixed media. It's a great way to invest in a set that's very inexpensive, that won't break the bank, and that'll probably get you hooked. Go to the jerrysartarama.com website. You're going to type in the keyword JL158 and it will pull up the list of all of these fun little sets that he showed. And as soon as the paper is in, I will put that on that list as well. And I'll put a link into the Jerry's Live group for that. So thanks, guys.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you.
You guys take care. You will be seeing Jeff and Kyle again. In a few, I guess next month, we're going to be doing acrylics, and he's going to be working with tricky pearlescence, which everybody loves and everybody's afraid of because they don't know how to use it properly. So, so you'll get to see Jeff again.
I will be back
in his element working in acrylics because he's actually.
I'm an acrylic painter, so yeah,
Nice.
I'll be in my element then.
Even better.
He's always in his element, but yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys. And everybody stay well and safe and take care.
Absolutely.
See ya.
Right. Thanks, everybody.